The widespread condemnation of the brutal torture and murder of the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi has not led to widespread action. Canada still imports oil from Saudi Arabia, almost 80,000 barrels a day from that country. In return, by the way, General Dynamics, based in London, Ontario, sells $15 billion worth of light armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia. So what can or what should Canada do to respond to the murder of a journalist? To talk about that and the increasingly weakened position of NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who lost another veteran MP this week. What's he going to do about it? The Scrum is here to find out. Tanya McCharles is back, Joyce Napier, Craig Oliver, and our special guest this time around is Nanos chairman, Nick Nanos. Nick, how politically important is it for the government to take action on this Saudi issue?
Well, they've got to do something. Let's face it, they take action on a whole bunch of other issues, like gender issues, Indigenous affairs, and so forth. So they need to walk the walk and talk the talk on this, because not only do they have the kind of the armaments issue to deal with, but there is a high principle issue in terms of this journalist and what happened in that consulate. So they've got to move.
Yeah, Tonda, it seems to me that, you know, it's always cancel the light armored vehicle contract or not. But Justin Trudeau has sent out, frankly, a lot of mixed messages on this.
Yes,
is this now trouble for him?
Well, it's confusing to all of us because he's saying we're actively reviewing this. Reviewing what, actually? Reviewing the contract to sell labs when they last suspended export permits on it was because they were trying to figure out were the labs used against civilians in Yemen. Guess what? They concluded no, there's no evidence to show that. Therefore, export permits resumed. In this case, the contract doesn't say labs can't be used to murder a journalist in a Soviet consulate in Istanbul. So there's no weaseling around that. Like it seems their hands are tied on the contract. I don't know. That's another issue. We don't have any transparency on the contract.
And there is no moral high ground here. I think at some point, all of the arms dealers, including us, but especially the British and the French, are going to have to look themselves in the mirror and face their own hypocrisy. We all have seen what's happening next door in Yemen. Many, many thousands dead already, with weapons, armaments supplied by other Western allies of ours. And we have to wonder, where is that all going? And how can the government make a decision in which they're going to take some kind of moral high ground when obviously at the moment it's the business decision that matters to them and they're afraid to cut it loose?
Well, yeah, and of course there's an election coming up and there's 3,000 jobs in London, Ontario.
2,000 now, they say. 2,000 are employed there, not even 3,000.
Oh, interesting. Oh, so how do they measure this, Joyce? You know the region well.
Well, you know, it's beyond that. It's a festival of hypocrisy. The world knew that the weapons they were selling to the Saudis were going to kill civilians. They are starving the Yemenites. They're not only killing them, but they are likely going to starve millions of them with their blockades. We all know that. It's all over the place. You want video? Go find it. You will find the evidence, right? But now this journalist has sort of coalesced the international community, and what is happening there is dangerous, actually, because there are three major players that are vying for a position there. And, you know, depending on who wins this game, whether it's the Iranians, the Saudis, or the Turks, it will impact the rest of the world and the stability of the whole region. So that is also what the world has to consider, what the Americans have to consider. And let alone that the Saudis are very generous investors. They're the biggest investors in the United States, in Europe. They're investing all over the place. They have deep pockets, and they're the biggest exporters of oil. This is just terrible situation.
Which is why I think you see the Canadian government trying to mount any kind of joint international response. All of their actual effort, has been to try and bring, you know, the G7 leaders all together to make, really, the statement was quite banal, actually. It was not, but the fact that they got them all to agree on it was the thing.
But only Germany so far has taken real solid action, saying they will not sell arms. So does the mealy mouth wait and see?
In the future.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think this really cuts it. I think the reality is that this is a holding strategy and sounds like a bizarre yes minister quote, like we are actively reviewing the file, minister, which means we are not doing anything. So I think the Liberals have to chart a path and kind of stake out a position on this.
All right, let me turn to Jagmeet Singh. Another NDP MP has jumped off the orange ship. Sheila Malcolmson, who will resign her BC seat. Gee, she just won in the last election. It's not like she's been around that long, but she wants to enter political politics. That makes 3 former ridings the NDP won in the last election that are now in play. Now, Jagmeet Singh wants to win in one of them. They haven't called the by-election. They might actually call the by-election next week. What kind of challenge is Jagmeet Singh facing in all these?
Oh, he's got a massive challenge. You know, the NDP numbers are in the mid-teens. This is kind of like the Liberals have stolen all the furniture in the NDP public policy house because the Liberals are very progressive. For all intents and purposes, I think if you ask an average Canadian, there's not a lot of difference from a policy perspective between the Liberals and the New Democrats. So Justin Trudeau has not only taken the furniture, he's eaten Jagmeet Singh's lunch, and there's just not a lot for them to run on right now.
And it's Trudeau's decision, which is the most important decision in the life of Jagmeet Singh right now, which is whether to give him an early by-election, as early as the next 2 months. And that gives him time to try to recover some ground.
And whether to run a candidate against him, right?
And whether, that's the other one. And if they want to wait, if Trudeau wants to wait for months and months until just before the election, and Jagmeet Singh loses then the party won't even have time to get a new leader. That would be a very mean thing for Mr. Trudeau to do.
But politics, so what?
Politics.
So what? Politics is about playing hardball, and if Jagmeet Singh was serious, he would have run in a riding long before now.
There are no gentlemen's deals
seriously.
Jagmeet Singh made 2 mistakes. The first one was not to try to get into Parliament immediately after he won the leadership.
Right.
And secondly, read the policy. Get on top of the policies, right? It is clear that Jagmeet Singh is not with the program, doesn't know about the Liberal policies, and when he's asked to comment on it, time and time again, when we go to his news conferences, we feel that he doesn't understand it.
Well, it's interesting. He was very silent during the biggest policy announcement, which was the Liberal plan on carbon and the carbon tax and rebate, Tonda. And that very same day, Jagmeet Singh was talking about a program in the province of Ontario. He was very silent on that. Has he been boxed out on that by the Liberals?
Look, it's difficult for the NDP to criticize. The way they have been attacking the Liberal climate change policy is that it doesn't go far enough. Yeah. Well, guess what? There's no perfect policy, right? Yes, it doesn't go far enough in terms of meeting the Paris Accord. It goes too far for the Conservatives. I don't know how you think that's going to play out, Nick, but I think that this is just a fascinating cross-cutting issue.
Oh, this is going to be a completely mixed bag right across the board for the parties. You know, the thing is, it helps mobilize what I'll say the environmentalist, progressive liberalist core, but then those blue liberals, and you know what? Justin Trudeau needs blue liberals if he wants to form a majority government. As soon as they see that tax word, it's bad news. It's
going to be interesting because a lot of the play for the next election will be in the suburban swaths around GTA, Greater Toronto Area, and Greater Vancouver, right? And there's Jagmeet Singh right in the smack in the middle trying to win a seat in Burnaby, where the pipelines issue, it's ground zero for pipelines. It's going to be ground zero also for carbon tax, right? Environmental sentiment is strong, so.
He has got an uphill climb, and where he actually finally gets to start that hill, we don't know. Maybe this week we'll find out about the by-election. All right, got to leave it there. We'll find out if by-elections are called next week. Craig, Nick, Joyce, and Tonda, thanks so much for joining us.